Hey pillars, and welcome back to another cycling tech video. We're going to be upgrading my Ultegra crank. So the point of this video is that if your chain rings are looking a little bit overused, done for, then you could replace them either with the same chain rings that Shimano offers, or you can go for a budget high performance Chinese chain rings. This is a company called Pasquest. They make a bunch of different chain rings options. It's black. This one specifically enclosed for Shimano, so it might be a little bit heavier. We're going to compare the chain rings. This one is a 50-34, so it is smaller than this one because this is a 52-36. So we're going to compare the weights, but the cool thing with this is that it's a competitive price. It's tried and tested. I'm going to be testing it as well, and it does make the Ultegra crank, I just think it'll look a lot better, because if you're used to spider-based Chinese power meters, they use a circular design, so it's a lot easier for chain rings to make an enclosed system. It just looks way nicer on the bike. I'm not that big of a fan of having this many holes, and my bike's light enough to where I think aesthetically it's a big upgrade. So I'll show you guys. This is the crank 175, even though I'm riding 165 right now, and I'm loving it. I'm 6'2", 188 centimeters. But for my indoor setup, I'll just ride my old rim brake bike. And then this is the chain ring. So right here we have the outer ring, the inner ring, and what makes this one a little bit different is, like I said, because this is Shimano, and Shimano has this system here, how it encloses, we have these covers, and without these covers, it would just look really weird. So the whole bolt screws in here, and it'll make it all flush, because here you don't see any of the bolts on a Shimano crank system. It's here on the back. So to do it on this one, they have to make it seamless with the crank, where, like I said, on spider-based Chinese power meters, you see the bolts. So it is what it is. So Pasquest offers that. I'll include the price somewhere up here when I edit the video. But the tools that you'll need for this is a standard Allen set to basically unscrew the bolts here on the left crank arm. And then you'll need the Shimano tool as well for the preload to unscrew it and then preload it when you put the crank back on. And then you'll need a torque wrench as well for when you have to tighten the crank bolts. You don't want those not torqued down properly. And then of course you need to purchase the chain rings. So I would say if you're already comfortable with the chain rings that you're already using, you can keep that. I went for a smaller one because I live in a very mountainous region. So initially when Pasquest sent these out for review, I wanted a climbing set. So technically, I could shorten my current chain a little bit, but I don't think it's that serious. Like I said, it's going to be my indoor bike for now. So I think I'll just leave it, and we're just going to swap these out. Now, the first thing you'll need to do to swap over the chain rings is you have to loosen off these chain rings. And technically, you shouldn't be using your torque to do that, because you should be loosening with an actual non-torque, something like this. And unfortunately, I don't have that. So for this case, I'm going to use my torque to loosen it. But yet again, don't do it. Don't make my mistake. Try to have an actual standalone one. So we're going to loosen these. And then once these are loosened, I'll show you the next steps. So now that the bolts are off, and like I said, I've had this bike for a long time, so it's very grimy. You technically should clean some aspects of this. But basically, just to reference, you should look at the Pasquest or whatever chain rings you're swapping it out to and see how it's shaped. So this part that has the numbering goes on the inside, and this part is on for the top. So I'll remember that when I put it on. So we're gonna take off these chain rings here. So the one thing you have to be very careful for is that most likely your bigger chain ring will be seized. So I don't know how well that picks up on camera. You have to make sure that these are not seized. So I had to wiggle it and push upwards on all the bolts to basically free out that inner or that big chain ring. And then if we put the crank here, we can see here, you can see the bolts here, how rusted they are. So there's grime in that, so it made it a little bit more difficult, but this is the outer chain ring, and then this is the inner chain ring right here. So now with that out of the way, we're going to compare the weights with the bolts as well and get that on camera. So putting the big chain ring of the Shimano, it's 52. It's 116, which is to be expected. That's going to be lighter still of the Pasquest because it's not enclosed. So this is 116, and it would be lighter if this was a 50 tooth. So comparing it to the 50 tooth in Pasquest, we're going to see what the weight is. So comparing it to the Pasquest, it's 152, and I wouldn't even say that's accurate because there's some bolt aspects here still in it, but maybe that's actually a part of it. So it is what it is. So this is 152. So this is obviously heavier. It has 2 less teeth, but it's enclosed where this one isn't. So aesthetically, if you think of the difference between, 20 to 35 grams, it's up to you to make that decision, but this is going to look super clean when we put it. For the Shimano inner ring, it's 33.4 grams, and comparing it to the PassQuest one, I think this one should relatively be similar. We're going to weigh it right now. It is 27.5, and obviously this is going to weigh less because it has less teeth. So we're going to compare now the total weights of each system. So this is 150 grams for the Shimano. So the full PassQuest is coming in at 179.6. So this one is obviously heavier, but we understand as to why. So the Shimano bolts are 5.4 grams. And then we're gonna see here, the bolts that close all together. This is definitely gonna be heavier, but aesthetically, it's gonna look clean. So let's see what the total weight is here. 26.8. So you're looking at almost 20 grams more, but like I said, aesthetics are aesthetics in this situation. Okay, so now that you have your crank arms disassembled, you have the old chain rings disassembled as well, we're going to compare now here. Let me actually get the weights of this crank arm so I can compare the weights of each system together. So this one, we have 344 for a size 175 millimeters. We're going to add on the other arm here. So that's 542, and then 542 plus this system, which is the chain rings, and even the bolts. So the bolts on top. It broke the scale. No, 698 for this whole system, for this crank system. So now we're going to take the chain rings off, put them to the side, take the bolts off, and we're going to put the PassQuest chain rings and see what the weight would be. So now comparing the weight of the other system, which is the PassQuest chain rings, we have 542 for the Shimano crank arms. Like I said, size 175 millimeters, so 542 for both. And then we're gonna put the chain rings on top. With the bolts, we're looking at 747 grams. So about 50 grams, give or take. I'll put the official difference of weight compared to both. But like I said, you're getting the aesthetics, and I'm pretty sure we'll do a price difference as well. PassQuest is going to be cheaper than Shimano, and then of course we'll see how performance is, but from what I've seen on blogs and reviewers, PassQuest is super solid for a budget, budget conscious in terms of chain rings. So we're going to put it all together now, and I'll explain that. So we'll take this off, we'll take the second crank arm off, and the bolts we'll put to the side. So this one's a little bit finicky because of how Shimano is shaped. You gotta put the arm out first, and then kind of fidget with it around, and it's fully enclosed, so like that. So now it's fully enclosed, and now we're gonna put the inner chain ring, and we can put the bolts on top of that as well. So it's super simple. I'm gonna take this chain ring here, and you wanna put the lettering inside. So we're gonna put it like this. And now with one bolt at a time, you're gonna unscrew the other side, and you're just gonna put it in from the opposite end. And if you want to, you can put grease on this. And I think I will do that off camera. So basically what you want to do in this section is each part of this bolt has a specific spot that it's gonna go on the crank. So I think it's like specifically made more or less, and it locks into place. So you can see here the difference. This is how it would look without that. It wouldn't look as seamless. So if you do want to save weight, you could just put a normal bolt, like just with a normal top part, but it would look weird. It would look like not flush. So this one makes it look very flush and very seamless with the Shimano crank. So this is what it looks like. And one thing I've learned from doing now multiple chain ring swaps and crank setups is that for the inner ring, the lettering that they put on the inner ring should always be facing the front side. So there should never ever be letters on here. If so, then you messed up the configuration, but this is how the bolts look. Now the bolts that they include PassQuest, they're tailored towards specific ones because different ones have different measurements. So you can just play around with it and make sure it's seamless with one another. Now we're gonna torque this down all the way to 8 to 10 Newton meters. So you just get your torque wrench, you get the proper head, and then put it in. And then this one's already set to 8, and then we're just going to torque it down properly. So each one, this is super important so you don't have one that randomly pops out. So that's all 4. I can check this one too as well. That's the last one. So that's that. The amount of injuries I used to get when I worked at the bike shop with chain rings, definitely don't have those injuries anymore. But this is what it looks like, super enclosed. Obviously feels a little bit heavier, but it does look clean, like I can't lie. So if this was going on like an AERO bike, and you don't really care about the extra weight and you like the aesthetics and the AERO benefits, it looks really clean. So this is a good opportunity as well to clean, like if this crank arm is not clean, but basically everything's ready to go, basically get put back onto the bike. And then once that's on, I'll show you guys what the whole setup looks like now back on the bike. So let me clean this and then put it back on the bike. So once you put the other side of the crank with the chain rings, you'll make sure that you put it with your chain properly. You'll make sure that wherever the crank arm here, if it's down here, then this has to go up and vice versa. So we'll put it on like this. It should go basically super simple on like that. And now this is the fun part, which is the preload. So you're gonna put this part and you'll screw it finger tight. You don't want to cross thread it and like that. So we'll just, we'll put it like this. So second, just finger tight. And I'll show you guys the trick here. Tighten it, keep tightening it, keep tightening it. And now there will still be play. So you see how there's play? So all you do is you take the Shimano tool here. This is from Park Tool. And then you'll tighten it and you'll keep rocking this back and forth. And then as soon as it's gone, that, maybe even 1. Still has play. Still has play. Tighten it more. Almost gone. Just tighten it like this. The play is gone. So now what you'll do is you'll set this, it says on the actual thing, 12 to 14 Newton meters. And then now you'll just tighten. And just like that, we're at 12 to 14 Newton meters on that side. And then same thing on this side. And just like that, we're done on this side. And like that, this is all ready to go, ready to ride. So now depending on the adjustments I'll have to make, because this is a 50 now instead of a 52, I'll have to make some adjustments with the front derailleur, but it looks really clean, really seamless. I like how it came out. So super fun, didn't take that long to do. And I think maybe I might have to take a link or 2 out, but I don't think that's that drastic of a difference. So this is the finished product. So that wraps up the video on how to change your chain rings from your Shimano crank to third-party crank chain rings like the ones that we have from Past Quest. So I'm gonna be super excited to test these out, give a long-term, maybe even initial review, but I love the aesthetics of it. So I hope this did help. If there's any aspects that I forget to mention, then you can comment down below to help maybe other people. But basically, this is basic standard stuff. I just don't want to bore you with every little thing. But I think I showed the majority of the steps at the end. What I mean by that is at the end, I showed you guys how to preload it and then obviously torque down the 2 bolts. So if you need to do that, loosen it up, loosen the bolts first, and then you offload it with the preload tool. So that's that. It was really fun. Shouldn't take anything longer than I would say 15 to 30 minutes. But it's good to get some basic mechanic skills. So if you ever want to swap, if there's a race coming up or an event or Grand Fondo, you can switch out some chain rings to have a better experience for cadence. If it's like a hilly one, or if it's a fast one, you can put a bigger front chain ring on. So super fun. I hope you guys did enjoy it. Leave a like, subscribe, and until the next one, keep on pedaling.